All right, we're back for episode 2 already. Another Wednesday or Thursday in the NBA, whatever it is. I am the host. That guy over there wearing the nice gray sweatshirt with the headset. That is the big skinny or Stephen Hughes. And the Deits is switching out a LeBron jersey there in the back with a Chris Mullen. For those of you who don't know, we were doing a little pre-show, and this guy had LeBron there. So I'm very curious as to exactly why the sudden change.
You got to go with the throwback and the current, Nick. I got to go with Klay Thompson. You got to throw it all the way back to Chris Mullen. But hey, I'm waiting for Klay Thompson to come back. But it's an honor, Nick. Week 2. I'm excited. I'm ready to debate with Steven again on the all-time 5 for the Portland Trailblazers. Ready to talk about some hot and cold players and some teams as well. But good to see you, Nick. Looking great as always.
Well, you know what? I really don't appreciate you switching out the LeBron jersey. And, considering that last week you lost the debate, I know this has nothing to do with the debate, but it doesn't seem like you're off to a very great start in my graces. Stephen Hughes, you don't have a LeBron jersey or a Thompson jersey or anything behind you. You're just going simple, you're going clean. I like it. You came back from the moon, which I really appreciated. So I guess you're the person to get us started tonight. This is the West Coast Heat Check, and we might as well start it off on the West Coast with a former West Coaster himself, Alonzo Ball. He is one of the two main Pelicans being talked in trade situations. New Orleans is very disappointed to start the season. And to me, this was a team that looked well on its way to being potentially in a playoff mix this year. But under first year head coach Stan Van Gundy, it hasn't been quite as promising a start.
No, it hasn't. And actually, over the last few hours, we're getting developing news that Eric Bledsoe, who is a part of that blockbuster Bledsoe Drew Holiday deal between New Orleans and Milwaukee during the offseason, Bledsoe is another name that's getting brought up in trade talks. So it just seems like things are not off to a good start. For New Orleans, I've always kind of seen them as a rebuilding project that's centered around Zion Williamson, who is having a great year, but his complementary pieces just do not really solve the puzzle that the Pelicans are in need of to become a playoff team once again. I think that the first guy you need to let go is Lonzo Ball. He's just way too inconsistent. He had all the nice hype coming out of UCLA, getting drafted by the Lakers with the number 2 overall pick, and to be honest, he's straight up, he's been a bust. He hasn't been what's been advertised over the last few years. He was a part of that AD trade. Clearly, the Lakers and Anthony Davis have won that trade so far, and I think that's just going to be the case. We look back on that trade. So Alonzo, he's got to go. And then JJ Redick, not for the sake for the team itself, but for the player. I mean, he's a guy that has consistently been going to the playoffs throughout his entire career. And now he's stuck in this team that is a bottom that's just bottom of the West. It's just not working out. So for JJ Redick with the few years he has left in his career, he wants to go for a ring, and I don't blame him. The first thing he needs to do is to get out of New Orleans.
Yeah, one of these main trade pieces, Robert Deiters will bring up a little later on the show for the hot and cold segment. That's coming up along with a look at the standings and some of the other top storylines around the NBA. This, Robert, has been, to me, I know the big skinny said there should be towards the bottom of the West. It's been pretty shocking to me that the Pelicans are as far down as they are.
And to piggy off what Steven said, JJ Redick, he's gone to the playoffs every year besides last year. And I remember he was joking with Zion Williamson saying, "Hey man, I just want to make it back to the playoffs," and put a lot of pressure on him, just jokingly. But Zion getting injured this last year, coming back in the bubble, Pelicans just weren't fully there. They have two great stars there. They have Brandon Ingram and Zion. I think they're just trying to find that point guard that kind of meshes with the team. Now Lonzo getting drafted by the Lakers and coming in that trade package with AD, he just hasn't lived up to the hype as everyone thought he would be. I don't think I mean he leads the team in assists right now at 4.7, but man, I think you need a better point guard to get in there. I think you need a point guard that can get over 5 assists a game. Eric Bledsoe has just not been a great fit either. And I think if you're going to let someone go, I mean, Lonzo is more of your younger piece, but Eric Bledsoe is that, I think that veteran point guard, I think that the Pelicans should keep, especially keep him coming off a playoff run with the Milwaukee Bucks. He has a lot of experience, has a lot of background, and JJ Redick he's been shooting his worst 30% from the 3-point land, and it just hasn't been the same this season. He's been inconsistent, and I think just because this is his second year being on the Pelicans, he just hasn't looked right whatsoever. The Pelicans need to move on. Lonzo has a couple destinations that could happen. The Warriors have been included. There's the Clippers, the Rockets. There's like 5 trade destinations that, a lot of articles have been saying that he can go to these type of teams. I just don't know if Lonzo is going to be a starter anywhere else, is the main concern going forward once he's gone.
I- If I can add one more thing, I have to disagree with Robert when he says to hold on to Eric Bledsoe. I think, like I mentioned, I think the Pelicans are a rebuilding team. I think if things go right, I say in 2 to 3 years they could be a playoff contender. But I think Eric Bledsoe would. I mean, the offers you would get from Eric Bledsoe would be a lot better than for Alonzo. I think Alonzo would just be just one guy in a package, maybe to trade away Eric Bledsoe for some draft picks, shedding some salary so that you're off with more of a cleaner slate heading into the next couple of years.
Interesting. Well, speaking of a clean slate, the Warriors hope to have that next season with Klay Thompson returns and with Steph Curry now sharing the bulk of the limelight. His 3-point shooting is going way up. And by way up, I mean he just passed Reggie Miller, who is a Riverside product. And I just had to bring that up because, I'm from around that area. So Reggie Miller with an incredible career. And to me, it's amazing. Now Steph Curry is second on the all-time threes made list. Ray Allen's the only one in front of him. Deits, it's amazing to me that already he's second. I mean, he is going to blow pretty much everyone else out the water if he keeps up this pace.
Even with injuries included, Nick, Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time, hands down. And if Steven wants to disagree with me, I want to hear his take on it. But he trails Ray Allen right now by 412 3-pointers, and he has and basically what the average was with that math is he has about 100 games to reach Ray Allen, and I think that
112.
112. Okay, it was about 100, 115, but 112 more exact. Depending on when he gets there, he can have some big nights. We don't know in the next 115 games, but Steph Curry, he's really leading this team this year. He has been the face of the Golden State Warriors, and he's actually has the most threes with any franchise because has stuck with the Golden State Warriors since he has started. It's just unbelievable what he has done. He's changed the game. He's changed what kids do. Kids now like shoot deep from 3. It's crazy, but congratulations to Steph Curry. He's gonna reach Ray Allen, but I don't know how much he's gonna. I wonder how much he is gonna blow out Ray Allen with that record, and I wonder what the future of the NBA is gonna be like. Is anybody else gonna catch him? That's the big question on my mind.
I mean, I think the only guy that's within reach of Steph Curry will be James Harden, but this conversation isn't about James Harden. It's about Steph Curry, and I would say probably he's on pace to break Ray Allen's record if everything, uh, remains normal. If we don't lose any more games because of COVID, if Steph doesn't get hurt, we're looking at about like next season. He's a guy that has been averaging about 200 made 3-pointers. Um, in his career. He's about like 250 to 275 over the last 5, 6 years. Uh, I would say that he's not going to make 400 3-pointers anymore in a season. It's just this is a huge workload. That's like the prime of his career. But I think for Steph, it's been an incredible ride. He's a guy that at the beginning of his career, a lot of people were questioning, is he really the right guy to move forward with for the franchise? Because the debate was between him and Monte Ellis. And when ownership decided to go with Steph, they made the best decision in franchise history because Steph has brought 3 titles, he's brought 2 MVPs, and a boatload of fans to make the Warriors one of the most valued teams in the NBA, like in the same ballpark as the New York Knicks, as the LA Lakers. So it's really a testament to what Steph Curry has done, not just on the court but off of it. But um, you know, it's been really cool to see uh, how just how transcendent this kid has been. Um, so all praise to him.
I mean, just real quickly, when you think about greatest shooters of all time, Steph seems pretty clear to one. To me, actually, before I even get to this question, the big skinny, are you in consensus with us too that he's the best shooter ever?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's
Okay.
that goes without question. Not I mean, we're not only talking about uh, the stats that talk about his 3-point shooting. You know, just watching him, his highlight reel is insane. I mean, he'll pull up from half court and drain it. I would say a half dozen times a year. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how deadly accurate he is. Ray Allen and I mean, just the NBA just 20 years ago, they wouldn't think of doing that. They would never have just a thought of that. So with Steph, he knows what his range is. His range seems like if he's open, he's going to shoot it. It doesn't matter where he is on the court. So, yeah, he's without a doubt the best shooter in NBA history, and he's gonna just he's the leader of this trend where the NBA is going to be slowly more and more slowly go away from the big men and then go more to the small guys that can just light up the scoreboard with 140 points a night between the 2 teams.
And yeah, that's good news for us. We have a chance to maybe do something in basketball. Not that even if it went really small, we even had any sort of a chance, at least not for me. Playing a little rec ball yesterday, I missed something like 50 shots. I'm really still annoyed about that. Some guy who's stretching the range like Steph Curry in the NBA is LeBron at Cleveland, his former team. How about 46 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists? Deets, I think that'll get it done on a Monday night. And to me, I think that'll get it done for his teammates, where it seemed like he single handedly won the game for them.
Exactly. And against his former team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, you saw he was with Osman. He said, "What's up to Kevin Love?" When he missed the shot, man, Cavaliers front office, whoever was on that court, just laughed at him and got a little, well, I mean, clapped and got a little too excited about it. But hey, LeBron gets the last laugh with 46 points. And it kept him perfect on the road until they went to Philadelphia and took their first loss on the road. But shout out to Lakers, 10-0 on the road until they got snapped by the Philadelphia 76ers. LeBron just amazes us all at what he's been doing at his age. And he's still 38 minutes and almost made 20 shots. He made 19 out of 26, 7 from 11 from 3-point land. That's
That's
very
crazy.
ridiculous if you're asking anybody. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that when I'm that old, but hey, you never know.
You never know. I mean, you have that Nevada spirit there, Deets. I mean, LeBron just seems like you've talked about the NBA's turning more to the three ball, and as of today, his 3-point percentage is higher than any season he's ever had. He only went past 40 once. That was in Miami, and here he is sitting at 41%. Incredible stuff from LeBron.
Yeah, I mean, um, I think all of us have been talking about how great LeBron is, not just us, but the national media. But the one thing I do want to mention is, the fact that at this age, LeBron and Tom Brady, the 2 greatest athletes to be playing right now, and possibly the greatest athletes in their respective sports, are still thriving at such an old age, and it's really a testament to them taking advantage of the science that's available in the year 2021 with recovery, what to eat, what not to eat, how to get yourself in shape, ready for the next season. Um, you're going to start thinking down the line that longevity is, it's huge. It's absolutely huge, and hopefully we can see more guys, maybe some like the average guys, like what we're seeing out of JJ Redick, playing for longer periods of time instead of these guys that bust after about 4 years. So, but again a true testament to just the science, what's available out there, and LeBron and Tom Brady have definitely taken advantage of that.
Yeah, these guys are just insane playing for as long as they are. I mean, I get sore after playing for one day. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I need a week off. I This is off the cuff. Usually we figure out headlines before the show even gets started, but I think this is relevant because the game just happened. We're recording this on a Wednesday night. Anthony Davis missed a three that would have won the game at Philadelphia earlier today. Sixers won at 107-106. Deits, there's been a lot of story about Anthony Davis really having a very slow start to the season. Is that concerning? Do you think maybe he's dealing with an injury? Do you think he can turn it around?
I think Anthony Davis can turn around. Think about it, the Lakers just came out of the bubble, winning the championship, and having to quick turnaround to start this season. I believe they're still kind of tired. I think they're still figuring it out. I mean, LeBron has looked great. I think AD is still trying to figure it out, but with a whole new look and a little bit of a different team with that starting five, I think they're still all trying to figure out, but only 4 losses. Still trying to get this team to work it around. I think they're still trying to get Marc Gasol to be that veteran down low presence, and I think he's still working on his game a little bit. I think, LeBron's going to keep AD together. He's going to keep mentoring him in the game as well. And this is still a championship caliber team. I'm not concerned. Only 4 losses. Come on. Are we really going to be that concerned about Anthony Davis right now having early struggles? A lot of people are going to have early struggles moving on right now from this season, from a bubble to this season. So it's all different. We have COVID still in our presence. So nothing is going to a lot of things are going to be different. I know Steven mentioned that a lot last show, that COVID-19 has just brought a lot of change, and hopefully, we get to go back to normal where we get to hear the fans roaring,
Mm-hmm.
screaming, cheering, and you get that home crowd feeling, and you get that, home court advantage. It doesn't feel like that right now. Some players live off of that, and I don't know about Anthony Davis, but Anthony Davis did so well in the bubble, and I think he's just gonna bounce back. And he's been having on and off games here and there, but he'll be just fine.
Are you concerned? The big skinny?
Not really. I mean, Anthony Davis, you look at his player efficiency rating, he's in the top 15. So I think a lot of people like to, blow up the fact that like, oh, we're seeing decreases in points per game and rebounds and all that stuff. They try to be really like nitpicky on that stuff. But I mean, he's still one of the best players in the NBA. And when I see a guy who's still in the top 15 in player efficiency rating, he was top 10 last season. I have nothing to really be concerned about. It's still early in the year. Like Robert said, it's still COVID season, and you also got to think like Anthony Davis is after winning his ring, he is now in that group of guys with LeBron and with Kawhi that are going to be focusing on rest and not putting 100% in the regular season because there's really no point in doing that. Just make it to the playoffs, be top three, make it to the playoffs, and then once the playoff starts, then you go out at 100% because that's what matters at the end of the day for the majority of these players. So um, nothing to be worried about.
And to piggyback off Steven on that one, Anthony Davis recently just had an article released about coming to LA, getting that trade from New Orleans to LA. That he almost lost a lot of passion for basketball. Remember, he was their star for the Pelicans. Like, he was the man. He had to get all the points, had to get all the boards. He did he did like everything for the Pelicans. He had DeMarcus Cousins for like not too long. He had Drew Holiday. He didn't have much big names. He goes into a whole different culture, comes to LA, wins his first ring, and he's playing with we're watching basically top 10 players in NBA history, LeBron James. So, I mean, I got to say, I think Anthony Davis struggles don't mean much. I think it's just, still coming to a winning culture, a different team, and a new environment.
Well, the big skinny last week was in outer space, and Robert is under miles of snow right now in Nevada. So both of you guys, it seems, have pretty good perspective on it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just a touch concerned considering how young he is and considering his injury history. I certainly hope that there's nothing too concerning there. Now's the time of the show where we take a look at the standings in the NBA, and let's go ahead and get started in the East. Leading the way is Philadelphia. That 12-6 record is now 13-6 with their buzzer-beating win against Anthony Davis and the LA Lakers. The big skinny was talking to me just before the show about how these standings are basically the same. Last week, I brought up the Cavaliers. They were at 7 last week. They're at 7 this week. So, unfortunately, not a whole lot of movement in the Eastern Conference.
No, not at all. And I mean, this comes out no surprise. I think the Sixers are a good team, but you see they're now 10-1 at home. Not that great of a road record, so we'll probably see that their overall standing go down a little bit with Milwaukee, also with a game in hand with them. So uh, I still believe Milwaukee will win. Will be the number one seed in the Eastern Conference come playoff time. I see the Nets as the season progresses, they're just going to gain more and more chemistry with each other. With KD, with Harden, with Kyrie, I think they'll get number two, and then Boston will be three, and then Philly will be number four. So, and then the rest of the Eastern Conference, um, they're here to just say hi. We're in the playoffs.
Wait, where did you say Brooklyn would be?
Brooklyn, I think they're going to be number two. So
Okay, all right.
they go
Sorry, I
more.
wasn't paying attention.
Oh no, you're good. It goes Milwaukee 1, Brooklyn 2, Boston 3, and Philly 4. Big win for Philly tonight, and maybe in a couple weeks if they string up some more wins, then I'll consider jumping them a place up to number 3. But at the moment, I see them as a 4 seed.
Looking at the Eastern Conference standings, I got to say Philadelphia doesn't shock me necessarily because Joel Embiid has been putting up such great numbers. I'm going to talk about that with one of my hot players, but Ben Simmons has been such an interesting question mark with the Philadelphia 76ers. Is he that good? Is he going to be that great? Just a lot of big question marks, but Seth Curry and Danny Green have been really getting it done shooting wise for that team. Shout out to Seth Curry. He's been playing phenomenal for the Philadelphia 76ers. Bucks, yeah, looking normal as always, near that number 1 or 2 seed. The Pacers they're that interesting team that everyone talks about, man. Like they don't even have TJ Warren and Oladipo's gone. They just got Levert, and Levert just is now from that medical when he had to do his medical physical, found that small mass in his kidney. He got that repaired. He said that trade basically saved his life. So I think Indiana is going to be looking pretty solid coming through. I am that lower tier of that 6, 7, 8, and 9. Screw it. We'll go 10. Has looked very interesting. I feel like it's going to move around so much. Do the New York Knicks stay in this playoffs? I don't know. I think that's something I'm really interested to see what happens and see where the Cavaliers go. I mean, the Cavaliers have talked about trading Jared Allen well, I don't think Jared Allen's going to be leaving anytime soon. He just got traded there, but Andre Drummond or JaVale McGee, they have so many big men to give out. I don't know which one they're going to trade away. I've been hearing Brooklyn could possibly be in the mix to get an Andre Drummond, or teams are looking in the mix for Andre Drummond. He could be a trade piece that moves away from the Cavaliers. Orlando Magic without Markelle Fultz, they just got Cole Anthony, and I feel like the Magic are still going to be that weird AC team that makes it in, but always is going to get eliminated in the first round. So I still think the Magic are going to stay where they're at. I think they're going to, well, not right now in the ninth, but I think they're going to make it back to that 8th seed again.
Interesting. We're going to have a hot and cold segment in just a little bit, and that will break down the two players all of us believe are getting hot and the two that are getting cold, and then one team getting hot, one team getting cold. If I had a second team to get cold, I would put Toronto there, but I'm going to have a different team in the NBA as my cold club. Toronto's been wildly disappointing, in my opinion. I mean, they don't have massive injuries, they didn't have some major trade in the offseason. This is just a team that, in my opinion, is underachieving. To think that Orlando, Chicago, and the New York Knicks have a better record right now than Toronto, to me, is very surprising. No offense to the folks who are big fans of those teams. I just believe Raptors would be in the playoff conversation. It's still very early, but a little concerning, I would believe, that the Raptors are right now the 11th seed. Another 11 seed out of the West is Houston. When the Deits was talking to me coming into the week, he likes some of the Rockets players. Do you think they should have a better record than 7-9 this season?
I think the Rockets should have a better record. I think they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, we saw John Wall go off for 24 points against his old team, the Wizards, and Russell Westbrook is just not looking like himself. He's not looking like that MVP type of player that we have seen in the past, and he hasn't averaged over 20 points this season. I feel like it's just a Bradley Beal show for the Wizards, and no one really. People are just frustrated with Russell Westbrook. I don't think the Wiz. I think the Wizards are gonna be out, but going to the Western Conference, very competitive. Obviously, this is gonna be really hard to get in. You're gonna need a winning record to make it in that 1 through 8 seed. I mean, teams could have a winning record in the ninth or 10th and still not make it. I think is what the crazy part is, because some teams that aren't even in that 1 through 8 right now, Dallas scares me a little bit, and I think it's because of Luka and Kristaps, and they need that. They need that chemistry to still keep flowing and keep moving. They got that Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. OKC has actually surprised us. I feel like if they were to, I feel bad saying this every time that we can say, oh, if they were in the Eastern Conference, man, they would have been in the playoffs. I don't want to talk like that, but I will say OKC is a team that is looking like they have a great future ahead of them. And hearing George Hill may be a trade piece, I don't think is such a bad option. I think you get rid of those veterans, and I think you just let the young guys run with it in OKC. But looking at it, not too shocked with the top four. I think the top four make the most sense right now, and I think those are the four teams that are going to stay within it. I don't know. The Clippers look like they're dropping without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and that's been such a big question mark with COVID. But is it also, I've been hearing, is that just load management, as the Clippers always love to do? But Western Conference, just it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for a lot of teams to get in.
Uh, for me, I think that I mean, going back to my top four from last week, I mean, for the people who doubted me that Denver was not a qualified top four team, well, they just took over the Suns in the top four conversation. I think people who have been kind of on the bandwagon with the Suns this season, I think it's a little unjustified. They're not a proven team. I hate to say it, Devin Booker is a stud.
Mm.
There's no doubt about that, but there's just a question on is this team really ready to make the next step to make the playoffs? And in my opinion, I don't think that's the case. I think just like a few seasons ago, I think it was back in 2014, 2015, where they barely made the playoffs. They were a 9 seed, like a game or two back from the 8th seed. I think that'll be the same thing, the same case this year. I think there's just too much like solid competition that's I think that's a little bit better than Phoenix. I think Golden State is better than Phoenix. I think Memphis is. I think San Antonio is slightly is, and then 5 through 1, obviously they're better than the Suns. And then we're also looking at the Dallas Mavericks, who we're hoping that they find some resurgence. Oklahoma City is way more talented than Phoenix, in my opinion. So again, the Suns fans, I know that you guys are hyped, but your thought that you're a top 6 team is just is wrong. It's completely wrong. Um, but it's also really nice to see how just the Jazz have been doing really well this year.
Yeah,
With their win tonight and with the Lakers' loss, they are actually the number one seed right now in the Western Conference with the
yeah,
updated standings. So, um, you know, they score a lot of points. They defend really well. They're my hot team last week, and they're rolling, they're grooving and they're grooving. That's all I'm gonna say. They're grooving
nice.
so far. But they're definitely a top four team in my opinion, and they're an interesting team, a team that I could see them going to the conference finals. I think at this point in time, they have more of a complete team than the Clippers, which would warrant them a conference finals spot against the Lakers at this moment in time.
Coming up on Wednesday, February 24th, the Lakers will visit the Jazz for the first time this season. So that'll be
That
interesting.
that would be a really good game.
And by the way, that's on a Wednesday. So make sure to have your TV set in our podcast room by that day. Um, Great that you brought up Utah jump to number one, but I think the Big Skinny brings on a very fascinating discussion, and I guess this is where we can end our standings talk for today. Is somebody has got to jump into that 8 spot in the West? I mean, there's so many great playoff caliber teams that somebody's going to be out, and to think that Phoenix could be the one out by this point of the season with the Big Skinny sounding like Einstein right now with the NBA is not too unfathomable, considering that the Spurs are always solid. The Mavericks, you have to believe, are capable of turning this thing around. And Houston's a good basketball team. So that means somebody's got to go out. I think Memphis might go out. And then I think Phoenix might be out. What do you guys feel? Do you think this is the 8 that's going to stand the test of the season?
No, I mean, if you look at the 8 right now, I don't think it's that picture perfect right now. I mean, the Rockets are on a 3-game winning streak right now. I think momentum is going their way. San Antonio is just such an interesting team to me. I think Greg Popovich, if he doesn't make the playoffs, I believe this would be his second year in a row without making the playoffs for the Spurs. And it's DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. I feel like we're just throwing old names in there, just names that just don't sound like all stars. Like we remember DeMar DeRozan as the Toronto Raptor with Kyle Lowry as being the all-star guy, but they have LaMarcus Aldridge who's aging. DeJounte Murray has stepped up, and DeMar DeRozan, I mean, he's the highest points per game guy for them right now, but I don't see San Antonio really making that 1 through 8 spot. I see Dallas and Houston making a big time turnaround, and I could see OKC making a push for it. But the Pelicans being 5 and 10, I mean, come on, man. You got Ingram and Zion, and you guys still can't do anything. Disappointing. And I don't think the Pelicans, I think with that slow of a start, I'm not saying you can't count them out just yet, but I think whatever they get that trade for, I think could make a difference. I think they need to get a big time player. I mean, there's been talks about Kelly Oubre possibly joining the Pelicans. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Steven, I hope Steven agrees with me on that at least. And man, Minnesota, yikes. I don't know. They're definitely, I think they're going to be competing for the worst team in the West this year alongside the Pelicans. Weirdly, Sacramento, I mean, they lost 3 straight, but the record does not look as terrible as we all maybe thought they would be. I mean, Tyler Halburn has been their rookie right now, and he's been actually pretty solid this season. So I just don't see that 1 through 8 right now being the same 1 through 8 when playoffs come.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'll be quick with this. Suns are not making it. I'll just
Oh,
reaffirm if you guys didn't know already, the Suns aren't making it. I would say the
are
Warriors
making
would
it in the
probably
West. No, they're not making top 8 seed. I need you to say the whole thing.
the Phoenix Suns are not making top 8.
All right. We
Then
got that on record.
yes, sir. Yeah. Hold me to it.
Okay.
I think the Warriors could be the 8 seed. Um, I could see Memphis going out as well. I think the two teams that would replace Memphis and Phoenix I would say it'd be Dallas and OKC. I think they, right. I think I agree with Robert. I think San Antonio is a little too stagnant, too reliant on
Mm.
two guys that have been regressing over the past couple of seasons. And Dallas are completely different. They're the young guys. I think they could rebound and get into some better form as the season progresses. And then for OKC, always talented. I think that with OKC, you can kind of link them as being that talented, underrated team that doesn't have all the money to spend on a star player, and you can kind of you know you can find the similarities of the Thunder to, you can say, in the baseball world, in Oakland Athletics, in my opinion.
All right, and we're back. West Coast Face Off. The host, the Deits, and the Big Skinny, Nick Rice, in other words. I forgot to adjust my name, folks. Shoot. And nobody ever stopped me. But anyways, we're just gonna go ahead and roll on. So the Face Off last week, it was the debut of it, where we take a look at the top 5 players in the history of a single team's franchise. And we began with the Orlando Magic and are working our way up, no offense, or offense attended. Now we're going with Portland's, the team that also finished as the 8th seed in the NBA postseason last year. The Trailblazers have two of the great shooting guards in its franchise history playing right now, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. I'm fascinated to see where those two rank in the top 5. Robert fell short last week, so I think it probably would give him a little bit of an advantage if he listens to Steven's argument first. So we're going to go with the Big Skinny to kick things off on the Face Off right here. Take it away.
Let's just go straight into honorable mentions first.
Oh.
So I could already piss people off for leaving these three guys out of my top 5. So let's start with Rasheed Wallace, who spent 8 seasons in Portland before heading over to Detroit, where he won that one title. Stud player, really a stud player. I think he went to, I believe, 4 All-Star games as a member of the Trailblazers. But he's a solid player, but out of my top 5. Brandon Roy as well. Injury played career. There's another guy who had an injury played career that is actually in my top 5. We'll get to him in just a sec. And then a man that you just mentioned, CJ McCollum, is not in my top 5. He's just missing out on the top 5. I think there are 5 guys that are better than CJ McCollum. He is a close number 6 in my opinion. So let's get straight to it.
This
Number
better be
5.
good.
I'll try to rebound right here, right now. Number 5
Okay.
is Bill Walton. Like I said, same with Brandon plagued with injuries. He missed 3 full seasons in his NBA career, 4, I would say, because of that nasty foot injury he was dealing with. But his 4 seasons in Portland were absolutely tremendous. He would average 17 a game. He would average about 13 and a half rebounds a game. That 13 and a half rebounds per game ranks number 1 in franchise history. The
Wow.
2 All-Star games he went to in his career were both during his time in Portland. Um, 4 seasons and it makes that big of a difference. It's really something. It's something special. It really is. At number 4, uh, one of 2 active players on this list, LaMarcus Aldridge, current member of the Spurs. He spent 9 seasons in Portland, averaged about 19 and a half per game with the Trailblazers. He's the franchise all-time leader in rebounds. With a hefty margin. I believe it's about 5,400 rebounds in 9 seasons. That
Jeez.
averages out to about around 8 and a half per game in 9 seasons. Just a stud, just a real stud of a player. Um, he went to, I believe he went to 4 or 5 All-Star games with as a member of the Portland Trailblazers. But he wanted to find greener pastures and possibly ring chasing with San Antonio. He hasn't found that. So I think he's a guy who's going to be one of the best to go ringless, in my personal opinion. Number 3, a guy that not a lot of people have heard about before. His name is Terry Porter. He's a guy, point guard. He was the 24th overall pick in the 1985 draft. He spent 10 seasons with Portland, averaging about 15 points per game. He's on a few of the franchise leaderboard list. He's number 4 in points. He's actually number 1 in assists all time in Portland history. So, and really an unknown name to a lot of people, but to the Portland faithful, very well known in that regard. Um, Number 2, 2 and 1, it's a little bit tough, especially with for how long number 2 has done it for, but with how well number 1 is in the analogs of NBA history. Number 2 is going to be Damian Lillard. We don't have to go more really in depth with this guy. He's averaged 24 a game, and I think this is his 9th season in the NBA. This is all with Portland. He's averaging 6.5 assists per game. I mean, he's shooting about 37% from downtown, which is, I mean, career wise, that's insane. I mean, for a lot of guys, you're looking at like 33, 34%. Damian Lillard is definitely above average. He's up there as one of the best. He's number 2 in points. He is number 3 in assists. It's just a stud. And number 1, it's Clyde the Glide Drexler. Number 1 on so many stats in Portland history. Number 1 in steals, number 1 in points, number 2 in assists, number 1 in shots made, number 1 in minutes played. This guy is Mr. Portland Trailblazer. Um, and yeah, I just love saying Clyde the Glide. Unfortunately, he got his one NBA championship outside of Portland when he was with Houston, but still, he is Mr. Portland.
All right. He certainly sent some shockwaves by having CJ McCollum out of the top 5 and Damian Lillard not number 1. Very interesting arguments.
Very interesting indeed, Nick. But he forgot one big honorable mention. Buck Williams also needs to be in that honorable mentions as well. But Stephen killed it with the honorable mentions part. I think he basically got the big time players in there. If you really want to throw in someone that was a big time of that starting 5 that made it to the Blazers for their first playoff win in 14 seasons, you can include Nicholas Batum with that Damian Lillard, LaMarcus Aldridge era. But all right, let's get down to it. I got my honorable mentions out. Number 5, I am going to go Terry Porter. He had some great seasons with the Portland Trailblazers. Really just did not put them, he wasn't the guy to really bring the team above and beyond, but just really just he was such a, sorry, I'm nervous, man, but because I want to get this dub today. So, but Terry Porter, just man, not known much about, but he's out of the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. I know Steven didn't mention that. And then I got to go with number 4. I got to go with my boy Bill Wallen. He did help the Portland Trail Blazers win a championship, and their only one in franchise history. Interesting stat with him, and he did win that championship. It was the most total rebounds he had in his entire career, the most defensive rebounds and offensive rebounds, defensive being 11.1, offensive being 3.2. The foot plagued him, obviously, but a man out of, I think Nick Rice knows UCLA. If I think that college is kind of a big deal, not like sports broadcasting camp was there or anything.
No.
And he's out of La Mesa, California.
San Diego.
Exactly. There you go. And then number 3, got to go with LaMarcus Aldridge, man. He really stuck it out for his 9 seasons with the Portland Trail Blazers. Was an all-star, led them to their first win in 14 years. That game being most known for Damian Lillard hitting the big-time shot over Dwight Howard. And then moving on to San Antonio. He's had more all-star appearances with Portland than San Antonio. And ever since from the 2010-2011 season, averaged over 20 points a game and just kept increasing up from there being his last season in Portland, having 23.4, which is his career high in points per game. Crazy enough to say. Number 2, it's tough. It's just because one player has, Steven has the mark on it with Damian Lillard being the number 2. It's hard not to put him at the number 1 since he has made so many playoff runs with the Portland Trail Blazers, made some big time shots when he's needed to. It's hard to not have Lillard there, but he has stuck with the Blazers. LaMarcus Aldridge took the big time contract in San Antonio, left, but he stuck with the team, got CJ McCollum, got Nurkic, got some big time guys, but I think Lillard just made bigger shots when it counted the most over LaMarcus Aldridge. And I think Damian Lillard is going to spend his entire career in Portland. I really can't see it. And he is still the face, and I think he will be the face. Now, we got to go with my number 1, Hyde the Clyde, Drexler. Stephen kind of put on the money there. Won against the famous Michael Jordan in the finals, and unfortunately lost. As Michael Jordan said, he was, compared to him, but called him a threat in the playoffs, and he took it personal over Hyde the Clyde Drexler. But he was a big time reason why the Portland Trailblazers are what they are today. He was the first round pick for 14th overall for the Portland Trailblazers and ended up moving on, but he was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2004, and that's what I see Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge being future Hall of Famers in that top 5 list. But Portland has such a great history, only with winning 1 championship and making 36 playoff appearances. One Lillard made happen when there's a 14-year drought by making the game-winning shot over Dwight Howard and that James Harden Rockets. So that's my top 5. A little different, not too much, but there you go. There you go. And if Steven wants that rebuttal, go for it.
All right. Well, the recap of that one was both y'all had Drexler 1, Damian Lillard 2, and then the rest of the list was whatever it was. The one argument, because I like both your guys' points, that I think will determine this face-off, part 2 of the face-off, is, in my opinion, the difference at number 3, where Deits loved LaMarcus Aldridge so much to put him at 3 and ahead of Bill Walton. You like Bill Walton, I guess, so much and LaMarcus so little that you didn't even have Aldridge in your honorable mentions, unless I have something mixed up if I was sleeping during your face-off segment. So I'd like to start with you, the big skinny. Your argument for today, please explain to me why you would choose Bill Walton over LaMarcus Aldridge.
So for my top 5, I went with Walton 5, LaMarcus Aldridge 4, and then Terry Porter 3.
Okay.
So I can make the argument of why I think Terry Porter is more deserving than LaMarcus Aldridge for my number 3 spot. Would you prefer that?
I guess so. I was sleeping during the face-off, I guess, because I was pretty sure you said someone else, but LaMarcus Aldridge. All right. Well, then either way, I think Deitz really likes that guy a little more than you do, nevertheless. So I guess my point's kind of taken.
Well, they could be compared statistically very similar. They are different players per se. One is a point guard, one's a guard, one's a big man. So for me, I think the fact that the points are up there at number 4 over number 3, LaMarcus Aldridge is number 3. I think he was more of an impactful player during his time. He was their main guy for Portland, along with Clyde the Glide. So and then in terms of player efficiency, LaMarcus Aldridge is up there. So obviously my argument is a little bit in the mud right now. So our rebuttal shot. I've taken the L for this week. Robert, you want to make your final argument?
Whoa, what? All right.
Steven was talking so much smack earlier, but
Yeah.
Steven, I got to say, the reason why I'm going to go with kind of this current 2010s kind of Blazers with, Lillard and Aldridge. I think they really help bring the Blazers back into such a playoff conversation contender. They never really were. I mean, that's when Batum was actually at his best when he was on that team too. But I see where Bill Walton's at. I like Bill Walton. Don't get me wrong. Great personality on TV, great player, injury plagued, obviously. And that's what happened with Brandon Roy. And that's why Roy isn't on our list. It's because Roy was injury plagued as well. But he was a big time Blazer. I mean, growing up, I think we can remember Roy being one of the main guys that I would keep hearing in my head. I actually did get to see him play as a kid against the Golden State Warriors way back in the day. So
Mhm.
crazy to say. I think Steve and I's lists are very on point. I really like our top fives. I just had to go with LaMarcus Aldridge. I have to go with loyalty. Also, at the end of the day, I got to go with the guy that stuck around with the Blazers. I mean, the one with the injury issues, but LaMarcus Aldridge stayed healthy. He was their big time guy before Lillard even came in. I mean, you got to think LaMarcus Aldridge comes into a team that isn't that great and turns him into a playoff contender.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, how come you guys don't have Bill Walton higher? I still don't know who to pick, to be quite honest. Viewers,
Steven
knowledge.
admitted he lost.
Simply put, he only played 4 seasons with Portland. Um, if if he doesn't have that foot injury, I think he would obviously play at least a couple more seasons with Portland. He was their best player. So so after his fourth season, he misses the entire next season with that foot injury, and that was a contract year, I believe. And I think Portland, with the money that they would have to pay him, they're too worried about the risk of another big injury to his foot. So I and then he goes off to the San Diego Clippers. So, uh, but for I mean his for his player efficiency rating is actually number one in Portland history for 4 seasons. So that's why I put him in the top five. Is I think if he's a little bit lower in the PER, he's not even in my top five.
Hmm. Deits, are you with them on that?
I mean, he just spit out a fact that he's number one in player efficiency rating. I mean, you can't argue with that. But I mean, I gotta go. I mean, I guess a guy that stayed healthy his entire basically the entire time he's with Portland. Yeah, he had some seasons where I think the lowest he played was 55 games.
Talk about
But
LaMarcus Aldridge.
yeah, I'm talking about LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah.
He was literally started out as center, and Portland made him into a power forward. Bill Walton did help them win their only championship in franchise history, and I love giving Bill Walton the credit for it because out of the years they have been a franchise, that only one has been the only big impact, and they haven't been since. So
Well, for somebody who's really nervous, it seemed like he did a pretty good job debating his point. The Deits, Robert Deiters, great performance. I'm very impressed. This guy wins debate number two. You sure do know your Portland Trailblazers pretty well.
hey, Damian Lillard has made big time shots and has really made the Portland Trailblazers what they are today. Has led them to a Western Conference Finals. Fortunately, you lose to Golden State. Golden State was in a dynasty era during this time, and there's
Mhm.
just nothing you could do to stop them. We saw the Currys go at it back then with Seth Curry being on the Blazers for that one and only season with Damian Lillard. But Steven had great arguments. I got to give him a shout out for that. I think he just struggled a little bit. I think Bill Walton is such a big topic, being a part of the Blazers for being such a short amount of time. I think he wouldn't be on our top fives if he didn't help win that one championship alone
Mhm.
for the Blazers. But
You
yeah,
said the big skinny struggled a little bit. So is that correct?
yeah, he admitted his loss, and I
Yeah.
didn't think he was going to admit that. He said I did that last week, and I will say I did because I thought it was a starting five, not an all-time five. So I learned my lesson going into this week, and I'm gonna, hope I need a winning streak, and I think that's what a lot of teams need in the NBA. I mean,
Right.
especially some cold teams like the Miami Heat that's coming up next. But thank you,
So you
Nick Rice,
admit
for
that
picking me this week. I really appreciate it, and
there's
you did
no
a
thanking.
great
I
job.
just objective, you were the one who did it yourself. So you admit the big skitty doesn't know anything about basketball?
No, he knows a lot about basketball. I mean, shout out for that
Okay,
player efficiency
whatever.
rating fact. I was not expecting him to
Okay,
throw that fact in there with Bill
sure.
Wallen. That was a big
Whatever you
term,
say.
but Steven, great job. Hey, 1-1.
Okay.
I think it's going to be I think we're going to have a great rivalry. I can't wait to see what happens next. And I know Nick has that next team for the both of us. I kind of want to hear which one we're going
Oh,
for
you
next.
just brought it up
Bryce.
very, very briefly. Miami Heat, the Heatles. So that sounds pretty good. All right, so we're really short on time here, so let's go ahead and do a little speed round. We promised hot and cold. We were thinking about maybe throwing in some rookie discussion. Who's the best rookies in the league? We'll save that for next week. Hot and cold. Let's start with Deits. Who are your hot two players in the NBA today?
My hot two players are gonna. Okay, sorry. One second. Go to
All
Steven
right, the
really
big
quick.
skinny. What do you
Go
got
to Big
for
Skinny first. I had to take
us?
my dub win for a second. Gotta soak it in.
Still celebrating. All right. Oh, he has no audio. So I guess while
Oh,
we fix
oh,
this, okay, there
I
we go.
apologize. I forgot to. I have a mute button on my headset that I forgot to turn back
I
on.
get it.
So
Whenever Deets talks, you just don't want to hear anything. So I hear
uh,
you. I do the same thing.
it was tough to hear today. It was tough to hear, but
Okay, whatever.
we're on to Cincinnati. How's that sound? But
Nice.
no, but actually we're on to Miami. So, um,
I like the
so
reference.
my two hot guys and my one hot team. We'll start with my two hot players. Start with Nikola Vucevic. I mean, or not, pardon me, Nikola Jokic from Denver. He's been having an insane season, but over the last week, he's averaging about 23 games, 13 points, 8 assists, and a part of that winning streak that Denver has been on. I think it was believed a 5 game winning streak. They've got wins over Phoenix, Dallas, Miami, and San Antonio. He's been a stud for this team. Um, a hot take is that he's going to average a triple double by the end of the season. Is that going to happen? Probably not, but it'd be cool if that was the case. And then my second hot guy is Bam Adebayo. Since coming back from COVID, he's been absolute stud playing against Brooklyn twice, Denver, and the Clippers. He's averaging 21 and a half per game, a little less than 12 rebounds per game. He's even dishing out some assists as a center. He's averaging 5 assists a game. Some really good stuff coming from Bam Adebayo. And then lastly, the hot team is the Grizzlies. This team was when we were
Yeah,
talking about them last week, they were struggling. They were really, really like in the dumps. But winners of 5 in a row, their defense is actually really good. They're fifth in the NBA in opponents' points per game, and they're 4-1 on the road so far. So um, uh, things are looking good for Memphis. We were talking earlier about how they'll probably be a team left out of the top A equation in the Western Conference, but who knows? If this defense continues, they can definitely be in a solid 6 or 7 seed position come the end of the season.
interesting. So Deets, you put your champagne and your cigar down. I hope that you have your hot two players and your hot team ready for me.
I do. So I'm gonna go first with one of my hot players being the trust the process, which I think Philadelphia is doing a great job with. Joel Embiid, hitting career highs, 27.7 points per game. I think it contributes a lot. I mean, Ben Simmons has not been what I think everyone's expecting him to be at this point, and Joel Embiid has really just made this team his own, and I'm really happy about that because I think Joel Embiid is finally realizing he's got to step up and be the man. I mean, they've seen a lot of playoff exits. You've seen him torn when they lost to Toronto and Kawhi hit the game-winning dagger against him, and I think he has fuel and energy inside of him. Philadelphia is finally getting it rolling, and they're saying, "Hey, Joel, like take some shots, man. Go for it. This is your team." And he's gone along with it. He's averaging a double double with also almost 12 rebounds a game, and he's leading the team in blocks with almost 1.5 blocks a game. So give a shout out to Joel Embiid, man. I think a lot of people are thinking this man's just going to be done in the playoffs all the time. I think this is a team that's going to give the Milwaukee Bucks a run for their money. I think if Ben Simmons gets it going, I think they're going to give a run for Brooklyn, but we'll
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. Correct me if I am wrong, but Shea Gilgis Alexander is going to be my
Nice.
next hot player, and I did get it right. I did get it right before the show. I was a little nervous I was going to get this wrong, but shout out to this man for Portland being 7-9. They're a team that's kind of been on and off this season. It's what you expect after 3 straight losses to LA, to the Clippers and Denver. They get a big win in Portland, and he got 24 points. I think this man could be a potential all-star. I know that's a prediction. I think he will be, because I think with Portland he is becoming the guy, and I think that's why George Hill could be possibly off this team, and possibly he could be the guy moving forward. Now, next guy, I mean the team I have to go with, I think that's been really hot, and Steven touched on it, is the Denver Nuggets. I think I like the way they've been playing. They're on a 5-game winning streak right now. Their next game is against the Spurs, and I guarantee they're going to get a win there. 11-7 this season, being one of the best teams in the Western Conference. They've proven it already. You saw how hot they were in the playoffs, and I think they're going to carry that. I think they got a little momentum built, and they almost put a run for the Lakers. I think they had a legitimate chance, but the Lakers were the hot team in the playoffs, and we knew LeBron and AD weren't going to let anybody stop them to get in their way. But Jamal and Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., man, I love watching him. I love his development. I love when the Nuggets did pick him. A lot of teams doubted that he wasn't going to be that good. Well, he had a 30-point game this season. Bol I think, is going to be someone that the Nuggets are still really, really working on. But I love what I'm seeing out of Bol as well. I think this team is looking really solid, and they're going to be top 5 Western Conference.
Yeah, Bol during pregame warmup, Sports Center showed it. Dude's doing a spinning dunk behind the back. I mean, that guy's just insane. My hot 2 players are LeBron, 33 points per game in his last 4. Of course, the Cleveland bonanza. He lost today, but or yesterday by the time we post this thing, but at Philadelphia, but it wasn't. I would say not much his fault. And we'll get more into LeBron next week because we'll have that Miami Heat face off. I'm looking forward to talking about LeBron. I would assume he's in your guys' top 5. Maybe he's not, and maybe we have nothing to talk about there. Then Andre Drummond with Cleveland. He's leading the way for a team that, if the playoffs are to start today, they're in the playoffs. It's amazing. Andre Drummond, he's always been one of my favorite players, but his career seemed to be down the tubes for a while in Detroit. Drummond's just awesome. Yet again, one of the league's best rebounders. And then best or hottest team right now, I have Utah, winning 9-10. They lost to the Knicks on January 6th, and I think it pissed them off. Sorry to whoever doesn't like the word pissed. Yeah, it totally fueled them. They haven't lost since, winning 8 straight. And I haven't checked the score. They played Dallas earlier today, and I think they won too. They were up by 15. Last week, I said some team won when they were up by 12 and they lost. So I'm not going to say they won, but I think they won. Anyways, let's go to cold teams and players, and I'll start with Deits, who just a little spoiler, we talked about the Pelicans struggling so far this year, and you have a couple of New Orleans guys, or a New Orleans guy on there.
I do. So I'll start with that. I'll start with JJ Redick. He's on the trading block alongside with Alonzo Ball, but JJ Redick's been coming off the bench. Steven mentioned he's a playoff caliber type of player. He's made it to the playoffs many times, and it's a player that really needs to get back to that level. Shooting 30% from 3-point land, just averaging a bunch of lows, and he's coming off the bench. But I shouldn't be changing what he's been doing. He's just not shooting well. I think just being on the Pelicans has just been the struggle, to be completely honest. And he just needs to get the rhythm going. I think a new environment is going to be a lot better for him. I'm expecting him in a trade package sometime soon. I think he's going to resurrect his career, but he's hitting lows in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. To go with my next player, I know this is harsh, and I know we talked about this a little bit during the show as well, but Russell Westbrook. I mean, the Wizards are struggling. He's been struggling. We can say over 18 points a game, and he's almost averaging a triple double. But if you have a player averaging almost a triple double on these stats, why is this team getting negatively affected so badly?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a man that has 18 points, almost 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. I'm nervous to the fact that Russell Westbrook is just, maybe something's getting in his head, something mentally is just not there. Maybe a new environment. This wasn't for him. Is he going to be the leader of this team? He wanted out of Houston. You're seeing what Houston's doing. Houston is gaining a great team right now with signs and trades, and John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Victor Oladipo. Those three guys have something to prove right now. I thought Russell Westbrook. I thought, man, he's gonna come in. He's gonna like get over 20 points a game, really make a big impact. Him and Beal are gonna run that team. But if I feel like if they had maybe Wall back there, and I'm just saying that's tough for me to say, but if they had John Wall back, I think that team would be a lot better. And I'm that's I didn't want to say that today, but man, I think with John Wall, that team could be competing for a playoff spot right now. So Russell Westbrook needs to figure out how he's going to work this around with his teammates. Him and Beal can't be the only ones trying to get points in per game. The next team, Steven mentioned, Bam is doing great right now, and I give him credit for that. But the Heat are 6-11. They went to the NBA Finals last season. A lot of people thinking that they weren't even gonna make it that far. Congratulate them. Milwaukee and 76ers were out. I mean, even with injuries with the 76ers, Milwaukee, man, they had Giannis, and then Toronto, who was last year the year's champions before the bubble, didn't even really make it. Wasn't even that big of a threat. Didn't even do much. So Miami came out heating up. They've lost their last 4 games. Their last wins were the Detroit Pistons and at Toronto, but they have lost. They lost the last matchup to Toronto. After that win, they lost back to back to the Nets and lost to the Nuggets. Something that's been concerning for the Heat is, can they make the playoff run? I mean, I know we didn't talk about in the standings, but are they going to be a team that we're going to see come back and make a statement? That's what I feel like. Butler's not about, like, Butler's a great player and he works his butt off. He got out of Chicago for a reason. He wanted to be a contender somewhere else. He went with the 76ers, made it to the playoffs with them, and then went to Miami because he wanted to be the guy like Dwayne Wade was. But I'm not. I'm Miami 6-11. They're a really cool team right now. I hope they could turn it around. Their schedule just isn't going to get much easier from here. I mean, they play the Clippers on the 28th right now. So
Hmm.
For me, let's go straight into the Cold team. I mean, we've talked about it quite a few times in the show, but the Pelicans, they're 2-8 in their last 10. They have lost, I believe they've lost 3 in a row. They're all over the place. They should be selling. They should be rebuilding. They should be doing everything they can to just start with a clean slate and revolving the team around Zion Williamson. Let's go to the players. Uh, Over the last 2 shows, I'm a big fan of player efficiency rating. Let's go with two guys who are really bad with their PERs. Let's start with Buddy Hield, a guy who had a 16 and a 17 and a half PER over the last 2 seasons. This guy's at a 9.9. 9.9 PER is the same number as Lonzo Ball. That's someone
Yikes.
you don't want to be compared to. He's seen career lows in points per game. He's seen a career low in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. He's just really struggling. And I mean, this guy is also a defensive liability. So you combine everything, he might be a guy that Sacramento could offload, whether it's at the end of the season due to free agency, just release him, or to possibly trade him if any team wants to take the risk and hopefully see that he might get hot and he can shoot well from 3-point range. But certainly we have not seen that so far this year. And then lastly, and then the second player is Draymond Green. Just really, really poor starts of the season. You're
Hmm.
seeing career lows. I mean, we're seeing the worst numbers from Draymond Green since his rookie year in points, in rebounds, in 3-point percentage, in field goal percentage. His PER is 5.5, which is
Wow.
10th worst, which is 10th worst in the NBA. Or pardon me, it's not 10th. It's 8th. Pardon me. I was getting confused with something else. His PER is 8. That's the 10th worst in the NBA. And this
Did
is
you
coming
happen to
from a
see
guy.
who was the worst?
The worst is a guy named Theo Maledon. He is he's I believe he was the second round pick for the Thunder in in the 2020 draft. So he's a rookie.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that's really
he,
bad.
his PER, I believe that is around 5. Um, is 5.2, but Draymond is near
Draymond's
8. Is near that.
5.5.
Draymond's 8. Draymond is
Okay,
8.
all right, all right.
But that's still 10th worst in the NBA. This is coming from a guy who, a few years ago, he's in contention to win Defensive Player of the Year, which he did a few years back. He's a 5-time All Defensive Player, NBA defensive list player, 3-time All Star. This guy's struggling, so it's been really unfortunate to see so far.
Yeah, PER can be a little misleading, but yeah, that's awful. He needs to certainly pick it up. Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry, I'm going to bunch 2 and 1. Cold players, come on, man, let's get it together. There's no excuse to be that far down in the Eastern Conference. No Kawhi, but it certainly doesn't mean that you should be thinking about the lottery by this point of the season. And then I'll just piggyback on Steven. I think the New Orleans Pelicans are the cold team of the NBA right now, 2 and 8 in the last 10. Yeah, it might be about time to start rebuilding. Anyways, I want to give a shout out James Spray for our logo. I thought he did a really good job on the logo. Kevin Dana, we're hoping to have him, G League NBA broadcaster for the Warriors. Hopefully next week he can join us. That was Robert Deiters, the Deits. That was Stephen Hughes, the big skinny. I am Nick Rice, the host. We'll see you next week. This is the West Coast Heat Check.